Sorry, but this guy is more important and probably just as powerful as he ever was, Barack Obama. A couple of things I've learned about him. Number one, he is running the country. Number two, he has disdain for white people as a group. And also, he's still struggling after all of these years with his own racial identity. A lot of this is in his book, his latest, about himself, of course, A Promised Land, and it's all there. He has wondered, am I black enough? Others in the black community have wondered about him. Is he black enough? It's in the book. Everyone, take a look. Obama's an outsider. He's backed by white folks. He's a Harvard elitist. And that name, is he even black? These are questions he got in the community all the time. Moving on. Those voices within the black community arguing that I wasn't ready, or I was too radical, or too mainstream, or not quite black enough. Of course, he had a white mother, and for some in that community, he was viewed with suspicion. When he ran for office, this came up back in the 90s, and when he tried again for Congress in the year 2000. Now, when we first started noticing him across the country on the national stage, nobody really knew about this stuff. Everybody just fell in love with the guy because, well, he was a dynamic man, great speaker, and for a while, it seemed like he was not afraid to say things that a lot of people knew, but were afraid to say, especially about the status of the black family and what was happening in that community.
Too many fathers are MIA. Too many fathers are AWOL. You and I know this is true everywhere, but nowhere is it more true than in the African-American community. We know the statistics that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime. They're 9 times more likely to drop out of school, 20 times more likely to end up in prison.
This was powerful stuff, and very few of any race willing to say this out loud. But he got nailed for it, primarily from the left and from very prominent black politicians like Jesse Jackson. Lots of headlines. Again, whenever he talked in really candid, forthright ways about what was happening in the black community, he got beat. How the Obama administration talks to black America. Folks did not like this on the left. Obama pressed on how he talks to the black community. Barack Obama talks down to black people again. So guess what? This all had an effect on him, and he didn't go there. And when he did go there, well, he wasn't this unifier. He wasn't someone who was saying things that couldn't be said by others or wouldn't be said. He just adopted whatever the far left was saying, and he repeated it from the White House.
You know, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. I think it's fair to say, number one, any of us would be pretty angry. Number two, that the Cambridge police acted stupidly in arresting somebody when there was already proof that they were in their own home. In too many communities around the country, a gulf of mistrust exists between local residents and law enforcement. Too many young men of color feel targeted by law enforcement, guilty of walking while black or driving while black, judged by stereotypes that fuel fear and resentment and hopelessness.
This was the style of his rhetoric. It was not what he was saying back in 2008. It's what the far left wanted to hear. They didn't want these conservative values or a conservative approach. So he only went so far when he was in the White House on race issues. But now that he's out of the White House and we have an empty shell of a man in the White House, Joe Biden, who is very, very controllable, well, Barack Obama can now get all kinds of things done. And I'm sorry, but when he said this to Stephen Colbert, I don't think it was a joke. I think he might have been bragging about the arrangement.
If I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats, looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony, I'd be fine with that.
All right, so Barack Obama was president for 8 years, and during those 8 years, I don't remember us talking much about slavery. Do you? Now it's all that anyone really talks about. Slavery and reparations. Well, even Barack Obama's talking about it, and, well, he mentioned this to Bruce Springsteen on a podcast.
So if you ask me, theoretically, are reparations justified? The answer is yes. What I saw during my presidency was that the politics of white resistance and resentment, the talk of welfare queens and the talk of the undeserving poor and the backlash against affirmative action, all that made the prospect of actually proposing any kind of coherent, meaningful reparations program struck me as politically not only a non-starter, but potentially counterproductive.
All right, potentially counterproductive. White resentment, a white backlash, all those nasty things about white people just weren't ready to talk about reparations. But now that he's out of power, or actually in power in a weird way, everyone's talking about reparations, and he got Joe Biden to get on board. Biden back studying reparations as Congress considers a bill. This is radically different from the guy Barack Obama told us he was back when we first met him.
There is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America. There is not a black America and a white America and Latino America and Asian America. There's the United States of America.
That was a long time ago, huh? A long time ago indeed. Interesting that that guy is now pushing reparations, and this guy is actually going to make it happen in his dreams, perhaps, but it looks like it could actually come true.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
We really are going backwards, aren't we? Look, here's the thing about race, in my opinion. It doesn't bring people together, even of the same race, okay? It's not a unifying force. People are very, very different. Now, Barack Obama tried to bond with some people of color this past weekend, a group in Chicago that he pays some attention to over the years. Take a look at this. Do you think they have a common bond of any type whatsoever?
When we came here, three of the guys here, I shared with them was, and I think this surprised some of the guys, violence and drugs and some of the issues that I was going through were similar. And I think that, I think that, you know, one of the things boys and young men of color, many of whom grow up without fathers, don't have as many resources around them. It becomes that much more critical. You know, these are the kinds of pressures I'm dealing with. That's something that I went through also. You know, I'm struggling with this too. You know, this is something I'm confused about.
We compressed that. He went on and on for about 4 minutes, talking about himself, saying not too much, and not connecting with anybody in that room. I wish he had mentioned faith, because I really think that that might have been something that could have brought people together. But our race just isn't enough. It doesn't do it. For instance, George Will. If George Will and I ever met, I don't think we would bond over much. He happens to be white and I'm white, but I think that is the last, we don't have anything else in common. I mean, George Will and I are never gonna be friends. That's that, and I can live with that. Hey, how about Machine Gun Kelly, that rap guy? What am I gonna talk about with music? I like Southern rock, 38 Special and the late Charlie Daniels Band. Do you think he's gonna be into that? No. Are we gonna start talking about our white skin? No, it doesn't work that way, and too often that's the way the liberal media thinks it should, but it doesn't. Does that make sense? I hope so. I know it's a little bit out there.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.